this is our transfer over. So Scott is a fan of the Knicks. I did want to get his quick thoughts on it, but I want to bring in CW Guitar as well. Thank you for being so patient. Sorry that we ran a little late with our technical difficulties earlier, but I'm happy to have you.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on again. And it was fun listening to the hockey talk. I don't I don't follow the AHL very closely, but since Milwaukee's in the playoffs, I've at least been keeping up with their scores and whatnot. Now that I know Davey is a fan of Coachella, I'm gonna have to. It's gonna have to be a rivalry now, I think. All there is to it.
I kind of love it. I kind of love it. We can continue this over on his channel when I stop broadcasting next week, and
Yes,
continue
exactly.
the rivalry over there.
Hopefully they can turn it around and win a couple of games.
That's true. Coachella is quite an impressive team. I mean, to be able to be such a new team and to get to the Western Conference Finals and then all the way last year, it's
Yeah, that's wild. Like you
yeah,
said, like a mini Las Vegas there.
yeah, a little Las Vegas or Florida or pick your poison. A lot of those teams have been doing well year after year. But before I let Firestone Rocks Drums or Scott, depending on which platform we're on, go, I do want to get his thoughts on the Knicks and just I was so impressed with them being able to get as far as they did, but it was just so tough against that Pacers team. What are your final thoughts on that series and the Knicks season overall?
I think the Knicks season overall was incredible. I haven't watched. I might have mentioned this last time. This is the first year that I actually kind of followed the Knicks all year and enjoyed watching them play. Like it's just they were just so much fun to watch. They were really like they just remind me of the teams or the times when I watched them back in the 90s. But with that said, yeah, I think they did amazing, and I think people might criticize the coach for pushing this team, and this team finished second, and they didn't have to finish second. They could have finished in the 3, 4, 5, 6, wherever spot, but they didn't care about who they were going to face. You know what I mean? They just went all out, and you got to respect a team like that. And I think if they didn't have all the injuries that they had, I think they would have went a lot further. I think they definitely would have beat Indiana. But that's just the way the game goes, man. Adrian, he said, you put the puck in or the way the ball goes, like that's just, somebody stepped on Brunson's foot. I mean, before we know, he's got a broken bone. Like we don't really know what goes on, but if you're a Knicks fan and you watch them every day, those guys were grinding and doing anything they possibly could to try and win that series. And I don't care if they lost it. I'm proud of them.
Yeah, I'm proud of them too. They had a hell of a year, and just I feel like the injuries just caught up to them,
Yeah.
and and that's just tough. I mean, and that had been going on for a while, and you guys,
You know what? I'm sorry, but
yeah,
even in the last game, right? In game 6, was it game 6
mhm.
that they lost? It was six game
Yeah,
series.
for six, yeah.
So even in game 6, when they were kind of losing bad, and they came back in the second half. I think they got back to within 5. Was it right? It
Mhm.
was either 5 or 6, and whatever it was. At that point, that's when Brunson broke his hand, and then Brunson was out. I guarantee you that if Brunson was able to come back into that game and that we were with 5 or 6 points, that would have been a different game. I'm not saying we would have won. I'm not saying we would have won, but I am saying that Brunson was in there and we got back to 5 or 6. It could easily have been one of those games where it went down to the wire, and maybe there was going to be a game 7, like just, but they wouldn't have got past the Celtics.
I honestly think you would have won game 7 in the Garden. So like, if you have a healthy team. So
Oh yeah, if well,
yeah. But
that was
so
their problem.
I just think that it's just because the thing is people might not realize even before the playoffs you had injuries and then you
Yeah,
were plugging some
yeah,
people in and then those people went down and you're plugging more people in.
yes.
Eventually you just don't have enough people to plug in at that high a level. I mean, Brunson was having to put up like 40 points a game to
Right.
keep you in a lot of these games, which yeah is not like him. People don't know that he wasn't putting up 40 points a game every night during the season. Like,
Yeah.
and he's good. I'm not gonna argue that
No,
it
I
was
know.
like LeBron James, multi nights in a row 40-point scorer. And so it was pretty impressive. C-Dub, what were some of your thoughts on the Knicks this season?
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were good. I agree with you, Scott. I think if they stay healthy, they're gonna give Indiana a run, and I think they would have won the series. Um, and I think Indiana got lucky both with the Bucks and the Knicks series with so many injuries to their opponents that they didn't really have to play uh, a full roster until they ran into
So,
the Celtics, and we saw how that ultimately turned out. So yeah, I agree with Scott. I think they have a very bright future, and they're an up and coming team. So hopefully they're just not better than the Bucks next year.
you know what's funny? The two, besides my first game that I ever went to see, which was it was Knicks versus Bulls with Michael Jordan playoff game. Like
Wow.
that was amazing. That's what got me into basketball. I was 20 something years old. I didn't even ever even seen a basketball game, and that was it. I was hooked. But anyway, the I've seen four other games, and two of them were against the Bucks at the Garden.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
nice.
This just happened to be, yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Um all right. Well, I don't want to keep you too late, Scott, but I just wanted to let you get your final thoughts on them. Do you have any are- I think just like on the NHL side, do you turn it off at this point? You're not watching the NBA final?
Yeah, no, I fall back to my Yankees now. I close the door. I just don't. It doesn't matter to me anymore. Like
Right. I get it. You have to have rooting interest. People are like, well, why do you need a team? Like I was like, you got to root for somebody. Like I'll even make it up on the spot if I'm watching a game with two teams I don't care about. I'll find a reason to like one of them because games to me aren't that exciting to watch unless there's stakes involved. Like there's got to be something you want on one of the teams. Like it's hard to just watch it.
yeah. I mean,
Watch.
like with the hockey, I could sooner see myself watching the hockey game because I know the Florida team now.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm in Florida, so I can see that. But the Celtics playing, who are they playing?
Dallas.
Dallas, right? Oh, Dallas, man. So Dallas has been really hopping, huh? They
Right.
have hockey and basketball.
Yeah, they almost did it. They got very close to having a team. The fact that they got a team in both the Western Conference Finals is really impressive.
That's
Yeah, I was looking at this one thing. It was really funny, and I don't know if it's true because it's the internet, but I saw this one person who was able to accurately predict like the craziest thing. It was I want to make sure that I get it right. What they did was they predicted that Michigan Washington championship that Michigan was going to win. Picked the Kansas City San Francisco 49ers and picked that Kansas City would win that and picked the Dallas Mavericks to win the Western Conference Championship. And
wow.
bet if they hit all three of those things, they bet $50 on it. Like how they knew this before all three playoffs is crazy to me. They won $98,000 on a $50 bet.
That's it. That's it. I would have think they would have more. My
Yeah,
God.
no $50 bet, 98,000. That's wild. That
Yeah,
is
but you get all three, right? I mean,
yeah. Like that,
wow.
yeah. Oof. That is pretty impressive. I don't know if it's true, but I saw it on a three-leg parlay thing right here. So this is, what I saw. But yeah, I mean, the odds were 197,500. It was plus that. So like
Wow. Wow.
it's pretty like
All right.
yeah, it's impressive. So somebody got this right, but it was definitely not me. So, but yeah, but Scott, I really appreciate you for joining and being a part of it,
Thank you for having me.
and I enjoy your streams all the time. I'm gonna give you a quick shout out. If people don't follow Firestone Rocks Drums, he's a great drummer on this platform. You can do a lot of interactive, cool things with cameras and stuff if you're a VIP, but you can also unlock those using points in his system. You can just create all these cool effects and stuff while he's drumming to all your favorite tunes, including if you go visit him and follow him for the first time, you can put any YouTube video in there and he'll play along to it. And so that's pretty cool. Definitely follow him, and you'll see me over there. I'm not sure if I'm a VIP or a mod, but I'm open
Both.
a lot, whether either way. So and I appreciate his friendship, and he'll have a new logo sometime in the next couple
We're
weeks.
gonna take care of that.
We'll figure it out, but
We're on it.
it's awesome. Whenever
School's over, man. I'm ready. I'm good. I'm much clearer and ready. So
exactly. Well, once I'm past this part of the school year, which is the crazy part, as you know, as somebody who works in a school, it gets a lot easier over the summer. So you'll definitely catch some tunes over there. And best of luck to your Yankees. It's painful for me to say, but and you
thank
know,
you.
and it's been fun. And we'll definitely, if you end up watching the Olympics, let me know, and we'll have you back on for our Olympic special in August for sure.
Sounds good, man. Thank you again for having me, and peace and love to everybody. And I'll talk to you. I'll talk to you. Later.
Yeah, sure. Sounds
All right,
good.
later. Good night, everyone.
Yeah. All right. We're gonna bring in Tim and Arun as well. We're gonna make our whole entire NBA roundtable here. And for people wondering about the times, everything's kind of been pushed back 15 minutes. So if you see a schedule, just add 15. So we're good. We're gonna talk until 10:45 about the NBA playoffs, and then we'll talk to Tim and Champ, who's rated in, and he'll join us as well when we talk about the awesome football game that we went to yesterday. I will ask you this because C-Dub, I know you follow a lot of different sports. Have you watched any XFL, UFL, any of that?
I haven't. My sons have though, so they've talked to me a little bit about it, but I have not found time to watch any of that this year. So
It's pretty good. The playoffs are starting this week. There's gonna be an Eastern final. Oh, not Eastern. Sorry. There's gonna be a. You understand what happened, right? So the XFL was one
the
league.
XFL, yep, they
USFL was
merged. Yeah,
they did the kind of AFL NFL thing where they merged, and so they made conferences. So there's an XFL conference and a UFL. Are you anyway? They're different conferences. They're playing for a championship of each conference, and then the winner of that will play for their equivalent of the Super Bowl, right? Um, so it's down to 4 teams now. Over the weekend, we played our last regular season game of the last regular game of the season. And so Tim, Champ, myself, and Carol all went to the game yesterday. And so we'll show footage from that
yeah,
in just
that's awesome.
20 minutes. That was really fun. We lost by 1 point. We were both out of the playoffs. Doesn't really matter. It was just kind of fun to go. And we got the first kickoff return of the season for a touchdown. And Carol, who was usually a co host, but is a videographer yesterday. And he shot it and got the whole thing. So we'll show that and a couple other really cool highlights and talk about that in about 15 to 20 minutes. But for right now, we're going to talk about the two different conferences in the in NBA, and we'll talk a little bit of a NBA Finals preview that's starting this week. C-Dub, I'll let you pick. Do you want to talk about the West or the East first?
Ah, probably the East,
All
I
right,
think.
let's do it. All
Yeah.
right, so let me go back in time real quickly. This is not that exciting of a series, but we'll go through it, and then it won't take a whole lot of time. So the Boston Celtics played the Indiana Pacers for the Eastern Conference Finals, and the Boston Celtics beat Indiana in the following ways. They beat them first 133 to 128, and the second game beat them 126 to 110. The third game was really close. They beat them 114 to 111. And then the last game was also very close. They beat them 105 to 102. So the games in Indiana were closer, but all of them were pretty close throughout. And in fact, there was opportunities for Indiana to win almost, at least 3 out of the 4 games. And so I'll start off with UC Dub. What is your take on that series?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. They had a chance to do some things and especially I felt like that third game
Mhm.
was kind of the turning point. Like if they could have pulled that one out, they could have made a series out of it. But once they lost that, once you're down 3-0, it's miracle time. And I think I do think at the end of the day, the Celtics were the better team, even though the games were close. And I mentioned it to Scott there. Indiana was kind of playing on borrowed time. They had gotten through a couple of teams there that had not all their stars playing, and you kind of felt like, oh, are they going to be the like this blessed team that gets all the way through? And it just wasn't meant to be against the Celtics. Their magic ran out, I guess. It does. One thing I wanted to mention though, it does affect my Bucks fandom a little bit in that this is the first time the Bucks have been in the playoffs and lost to a team that didn't ultimately make it to the finals.
Oh yeah,
Every other time the Bucks have been in the playoffs, the team they lost to either won the championship or at least made it to the finals.
that's
Uh,
wild. I
so
didn't even know that. I want to go back to an important point on that that you were just talking about, that game three, which I do think was a difference maker. In that, I don't think that the Pacers would have won the series, but it could have at least made it a little bit closer. With 49 seconds left, Indiana was up 111 to 109. And then Boston made a three, I want to say, that made it 112 to 111, and it kind of felt like it all dropped out from under them at that point, right?
yeah,
So, that
yeah,
becomes
they really I don't remember all the details, but yeah, they kind of, I don't want to say lost it. They didn't lose their cool, but they let it slip away. I mean, they could have won that game. And like you said, they probably wouldn't win the series, but at least make it more interesting. And
yeah. It actually shot 50% from the field in that game, but only 22% from three. So it's like um, that obviously becomes a thing. But they were perfect from their free throws, which is I
yeah,
thought so.
which
Uh,
which has
they
been
only
a
won 14 times versus the 26 of the Celtics. So, the Celtics only making 20 of 26, they still made six more free throws.
yeah,
And in a game where they only win by three, that's, potentially a difference maker right there as well. So,
yep.
it's not always about being perfect from the line, but, how many attempts you have definitely can have a factor in that. I'm going to go to Tim next. What were some of your thoughts on this Eastern Conference final?
I also thought Indiana should have definitely won game one because they were up big in the fourth quarter and they gave up a three to Tatum that tied it, and they could have fouled two shots, and then Boston could have only cut it to one. So they really blew that game. And I don't think they would have won the series anyway, but I think they might have maybe made it to like 6 games if they pulled out that win. And but they came in hot. They had just beat the Knicks 2 in a row, and I think Boston was just a little lethargic in that game. But when they turned it on and pulled out that victory, they really shouldn't have won at home. I think they knew they were the much better team. And then Halliburton got hurt, I think, like in game two, and missed game three. So Indiana was played really well without him. I mean, but it's just hard to compete with all those scores that Boston has. And they didn't even have Porzingis. So if Boston was at full strength, they might have, blown them out in pretty much every game. But just like everyone was saying, Indiana was kind of lucky to be there. I think the Knicks would have given Boston a better series if they were healthy.
Yeah.
If they were both very healthy, it could have been like a 6 or 7 great series, game series. But Indiana's also a team on the rise. They went far in the in-season tournament, so they're good at pressure game basketball. I just think they probably need a little bit more talent to get over the top, but they'll probably be in the playoffs again next year.
Yeah. I'm gonna refill my water, but Arun, give me your thoughts if you want to break any stats down real quick while I grab the water on the Eastern Conference Final, and I'll be right back.
Yeah, I thought Indiana, like, they weren't going to win the series, but like game one, the Celtics came out really rusty, and that was probably their chance to even compete in the series because they pretty much blew that game. Halliburton had a real some critical turnovers, like some of the dumbest I think I've ever seen. And I thought the Celtics were going to lose, but even like that, just that game. But after that game, the Celtics had the upper hand, given that the Celtics were coming off a huge layoff. And then in game two, Halliburton got injured. And even though a lot of the games are close, like game three and game four at Indiana, it just felt like the series was over and the Celtics were kind of playing a little down to the competition. Nemhard was really good in game three, and the Celtics did have to come up big with some big Drew Holiday plays, and Jalen Brown hit some big shots in games three and game four. But not really that surprising, especially with Halliburton out. Mathurin, he was their top rookie 2 years ago. He's also injured. So the Celtics have had a really like relatively easy road to the finals. It'll be interesting to see what they do against the Mavericks, but a little surprised to see Jalen Brown get the most valuable player of the Eastern Conference, but um, they could have given it to Tatum or Holiday, but it's not. I mean, he played pretty well, so you can't really fault the voters. So the Celtics do look like they were the better team between the Pacers pretty easily.
He didn't even think he was going to win the MVP. Did you hear him say?
Yeah, he's like I don't win anything.
I don't win shit.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, the MVP and the defensive player of the year, right? Because like I thought he was gonna do better on his matchup, and then, so some of those regular season awards and then how they play out in the playoffs, I find interesting to see. Uh, anyway, I want to give Arun a shout out as well. And so definitely go follow him out. He's now on Twitch as well. Yeah, I'm so happy that so many of our friends have moved over to this platform. I was just talking to Champ earlier. He's been 3 years affiliate now on this platform. It goes so quick. And I'm just so I'm trying to get Arun and Adrian to affiliate as well. So I'm just going to give a shout out to him real quickly. So people just go give Arun a follow. In addition, also definitely check out CW Guitar. I know we gave him a shout out earlier, but he's great as well. Remind us, CW, what days do you normally stream?
Yeah, so I normally stream Wednesdays and Fridays. During the summer, Fridays are kind of hit or miss though because I have a yeah, life, summer
Right.
life is a little more hectic
That's
than
why this podcast is going on hiatus after today.
exactly. Yes,
Get it.
exactly. But yeah, usually it's Wednesdays and Fridays. They usually start around 8:30 Eastern.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah. So he's fun. Got a lot of great guitar tunes over there. And go check him out. And Arun does a bunch of different video games. I saw you doing StarCraft before. Is that what you normally are doing over there, Arun?
Yeah, I took a little bit of a break last week, but I was traveling. Maybe I'll get back into it. My friend, me and him have been doing it, just mostly laughing at each other, like keeping each other company while we do it.
Nice. No, that's cool. And Adrian just hit his numbers. We just need to get his average viewership up. So that's why we're gonna rate him after this a little bit tonight, just to try to get him boosted right there. He's so close. So I appreciate everyone for helping do that too. I think it's fun. What a fun platform. CW and I have known each other now for 3 years, I guess, on this platform, and so I know that we've only gotten to do this a couple of times on here, but it's super fun. And I know that people are watching us live on Facebook or listening to the podcast later. But I was so thankful for it, especially after and during the pandemic, and still we're in the pandemic. But it's been a great community and been awesome friends to find on here, and um, you know. I did lose a friend that was in this community, this past week. I do want to give a little bit of a shout out to Big Bill Hendo. And he was such a positive person in the community. And I'm just looking at your shirt, and you're a Packers fan. And I do remember he did come in a chat one time and mention that he was also a Packers fan.
Yeah, yeah. I didn't interact with him a ton, but I remember that we chatted about that once, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's tough. It's actually the second streamer I know that's passed away.
Yeah.
So it's always hard. You're right about Twitch being a big community, and
It's a
people become
family.
friends and hang out and even every other chats, and so it's hard when you lose someone like that.
Yeah. So shout out to him. If people want to go know more about him, Davey did a wonderful show last week that I was able to join for the last hour of. And also Cover Time Pete did a really beautiful thing the day that we kind of found out about it, found all the songs he had in common with him on his playlist, and had a place where he would sing and we could all talk about him and stuff like that. So all those VODs are up on those channels. And so definitely give them a follow and give those a watch. If you want to know more about him, I did cover his sports background and his love of Pokemon, and others talked about his music love and stuff like that. So, and my thoughts and wishes go to his family. I'd be remiss not to at least talk about him a little bit tonight. Just such a positive person in our community. Thank you, Dad. So I appreciate you for joining in chat as well. So yeah, I'm very fortunate to be a part of such a loving and great community. Without Twitch Music, I wouldn't have come back and brought this back to this platform. They encouraged me, to say, hey, give it a second shot. And we did, and I love it over here, and this becomes kind of our primary place. I still post it on Facebook and do the audio podcast too, but the community here is obviously what drives this going forward. So. I appreciate everyone for tuning in and being a part of what a great show this has been. We're about an hour and a half into it. Let's get into the Western Conference Finals. I thought it was slightly more interesting in a lot of ways. But we'll go through all of the different games that the Mavericks were able to win. So the first game against Minnesota was in Minnesota. They won a very close game, 108 to 105. Then in the second game, they won 109 to 108. And the third game, that game was actually in Dallas. They won that game 116 to 107. That was the biggest point differential of these early games. And then they lost 100 to 105. But of those four games, Minnesota was in all four of them, and they had opportunities in all of them. But just some incredible shots at the very end of the games. And Dallas was able to squeak by with a lot of those. And then the last game they did win 124 to 103. So that was a bigger disparity, which was kind of surprising because it was in Minnesota for that one. Yeah, I'll go to you first, T-Dub. What were some of your thoughts on that series?
Yeah, I was really surprised how it ended, to be honest. I was feeling, I don't know if I happened to catch some of the pregame that night, and Barkley was like, I guarantee Minnesota's going to win because Dallas is just like, well, we just got to win one more. So, this game doesn't matter. And Dallas wasn't having it. I think Luka in particular just really the plays he made late in games was a big part of why they won. And he, even injured, just was able to take over at different points in the series. And
He couldn't be
make
stopped.
the difference,
Just like he had, it didn't matter who was on him. He was
No.
the step back three would just go, and it was really impressive. It reminded me of sort of that Kobe Jordan mentality where you think you're the best person on the court, you're gonna show everyone this is your night, legendary stuff,
Yeah,
and
it really was. It really was.
it was very impressive. But I got to give Kyrie a lot of credit, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna follow on with. But Luca wouldn't have been able to do the things he was doing without Kyrie and
Yeah.
some of the other players. Like Lively, what a pleasant surprise he's been in the playoffs, man. For a rookie, he's really made some impressive plays. Plays solid defense. Um, put in some good minutes for them. But
Minutes
yeah,
in that.
Kyrie is kind of having a renaissance, in this playoffs. Um, he's he's doing what he needs to do. I've seen a number of stories where he's talked about as like a really vocal leader in their locker room, which if you go back a few years ago, no one would have been saying that kind of stuff. Like, oh no, Kyrie's like you got to manage him, and he's great on the court, but he doesn't have those intangibles, and so to see him step up like that is really cool. And
Also does not be a distraction. Like there was so
yeah,
many years where he, like, regardless of whether because he could have still been a leader in the locker room. I don't know, in some of those other teams, but his off the court antics were just such a distraction. I felt that like he just didn't get his head in the game, and
yep,
it was really interesting. But Lively, as you said, played 24 minutes in that last game, and he was 3 for 3 from the field with 9 points, and some of that's in a little bit of garbage time, but I was just impressed with his ability to play within himself. But Kyrie and Luca both scored 36 points, both on 14 field goals made. Just really impressive from both of them. And they just have such a chemistry brewing between the two of them.
yeah,
That a lot of people think that this is Boston's championship to lose, but I don't know. Like they have some pretty good chemistry going for sure. Any quick thoughts on that, and then I'm gonna get Tim's thoughts.
yeah. Well, I think Tim mentioned it earlier. Porzingis, God, I can't pronounce his name. Coming back for the Celtics is going to be pretty big, um, because that'll give them another outside option and could affect the Mavs bigs because they'll have to come out and defend the three, um, and obviously play them down low too. But I think on paper it's the Celtics to lose. But that chemistry is kind of the X factor. Like if Luca and Kyrie can stay as hot as they have been, um, I certainly think they have a chance, more than a chance to
Kind of
pull it
hate
off.
how long of a layover. I know that they
Oh, I
do it
know.
that way because of TV deals, and they want to make sure that
Yep.
they could fit 7 in if they needed to before it or whatever. But like, I just wish that they could bump it up when both are such short series like that. And
Yeah, I agree. Well,
I
and
just
it's gonna
hurt
be
both teams.
interesting to see who has rust in that first game,
Right? Because I'm
because
wondering if Porzingis with that as well. Like
oh
he's
gosh, yeah, for
been so
sure.
long.
But because Arun mentioned it in the Indianapolis series, the Celtics did look rusty in that first game, and so maybe they learned something from that, and then we'll see Dallas. You hate. I, I don't know. I'm not obviously I'm not a professional athlete, but I have to imagine it's frustrating when you're feeling so hot and sort of in the zone to have to take a few days off. But it'll it gives everyone a chance to get healthy, at least healthier, and it should be a good series. I really think it's probably going to go 6 or 7.
Yeah, I think it's wild that you kind of have Porzingis, who is on Dallas once upon a time,
Yeah,
playing for
and
this
Kyrie was on the
crazy
Celtics. Yeah,
other guy,
plenty of storylines.
yeah, for sure. Tim, what are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, going back to the Western Conference Finals, I think it was more about Minnesota not having their big guns play well, except that game 4 win. Um, Edwards was great in the playoffs, but he really wasn't great in this series. And same with Cat. He underperformed, except game 4. He scored a ton. So I think just they were a young team. They overachieved. Dallas has a lot more playoff experience, and I think it showed late game situations, like everybody was saying. I do think though, with the rest, like you guys were saying, there's going to be a rust factor, but I also felt like Luka has been a little bit banged up in these playoffs. Even going back to the first and second round, there were some games he looked a little off, and he just looked, like he had minor injuries, and he just was playing through it. So I think it could actually help him. And Boston usually has a clunker, like a shit the bed game early in a series at home. It really was game 1 in the Eastern finals, but they just got lucky. So I do think Dallas will take one early in Boston, but Boston will probably get better as the series goes along, because they always kind of adjust, and they play so well on the road. So I think that's going to help them. But I do think Dallas probably will take game 1 or 2, and I do like some of the matchups for them. I mean, people forget Kyrie, or they didn't forget he won a championship, but he does have that experience. He's very clutch. And I do think there is a lot of pressure on Boston because, yeah, they're the better team. It's theirs to lose, but they have been very close many times. So we still don't know if they just have a mental block. I mean, we'll see, but I do feel like Dallas is going to play loose, especially early.
Yeah. At least we don't have to wait quite as long for the NBA playoffs as we do for the NHL one for the next round. I do want to mention that the games will start on Thursday in Boston, and it's an 8:30 game. And then on Sunday they play at Boston. It's an 8 o'clock game. Then Wednesday 8:30, which is so late. And then Friday it's another 8:31. So those are the following weeks, and then Tuesday, Friday, Monday, and so I think what's great about now the same networks, owning the rights to all of these things is that I think are they all on ABC now? But either way, they're going back and forth, so that we don't have them on any of the same days, which is great. That they worked that out. So it will basically have one of the finals every night to watch, which is for people who like both sports, kind of nice. Although I didn't mind watching the split screen thing, but it's probably better to enjoy each game versus and then having a night off in between. So at least we'll have something to look forward to. That. Arun, what were some of your thoughts on the Western Conference Finals?
Yeah, it was like I was a little bit surprised that not that like necessarily Dallas won, but just like that was like just like a 4-1 gentleman sweep kind of series. I think looking back, maybe Denver was kind of compromised a bit with Jamal Murray being a little bit injured, and maybe Kyrie is probably better than Jamal Murray in this series, and the supporting cast of Dallas really stepped up. As people have already mentioned, like Lively, he was great. He had set the record for most makes in without a miss in a playoff round in NBA history with 16. The previous record was 10. He did get injured with what looked like to be a concussion, but he was able to come back in game 5. And that was probably like the only little bit of doubt was that maybe he's injured and maybe that opens the door for Minnesota at 2 of the 3 games at home. But Luka's a killer on the road. It kind of reminded me of the 2022 closeout game in game 7, where he also had a big quarter, I believe. In this game 5, he had 20 points in the first quarter, and Kyrie filled it in. They just like pretty much demolished them. And looking forward to the playoffs, like 2 former Wizards starting at center against each other, both started with each other last season. That'll be interesting. And PJ Washington, he was a great get at the trade deadline along with Gafford. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I still think the Celtics are going to win, but if Luka, he's right now the second leading scorer in points per game in the playoffs. So if he can get past Derek White and Drew Holiday, wouldn't be that surprising. Maybe he's just destined to be a great player. But yeah, Kyrie's really stepped up, especially since last year they traded for him and they didn't even make the playoffs. Granted, they probably were incentivized to tank a little bit because they lose their draft pick and they ended up getting Derek Lively. So that may also put them over the top a bit. And um, the NBA seems to have a lot more parity where you can just go 1 year from not making the playoffs and go to the NBA finals. And yeah, Porzingis playing against his former team, Kyrie playing against the Celtics, his former team, and also the last time the Celtics they played in 2022 was Kyrie lost in the playoffs. They got swept when he's on the Brooklyn Nets. So be interesting to see if the Celtics can find a way to slow him down. And they seem to be a lot better defensively with Drew Holiday. And if Porzingis is back, then that should definitely give them the edge, but you never know because Kyrie's going against his former team. Porzingis, last time he was in the playoffs other than the Celtics was with the Mavericks. So lots of interesting storylines going forward.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, CW, I'll let you give your final thoughts. And then I'll let you and Arun get out of here, and then we'll bring Champ in to talk a little bit of football. But yeah, CW, what are your thoughts on the final thoughts on the NBA finals? Nope, I think you're muted. CW, hold on. I think you're.
There we go.
There you go.
Hey, I hit the wrong button. First of all, I did want to say thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. I love talking sports, and I would love to come back when you're talking Olympics. So
Yeah, for sure. The
both
doors-
my so I have twin daughters who just graduated from college. They both ran in track.
Oh, nice.
So I will be paying a lot of attention to the track and field.
That's great because I'm trying to find like common interests of that, and C4 who was on earlier, she
Yeah, I heard her talking about that too.
so that would be great. So we can have the three of us and anybody else who wants to talk track talk about that as well. So that's very cool.
But yeah, so for the finals, I actually think one of the key matchups, and Arun just mentioned it, is going to be Holiday on Luka. And if he's able to slow him down when he's playing him, I think that's going to be one of the big matchups. And then, like all of us have said, having Porzingis back. So those are 2 points in favor of the Celtics. But for Dallas, it's going to be like we just talked about. It's going to be, can their two superstars continue to be hot, and will their bit players continue to overachieve? And I guess it's a semi-hot take, but I'm going to take Dallas in 7. I think Tim was spot on with how the Celtics have started slow and were rusty in the last series. So I think if Dallas can steal one in Boston, they can, mostly hold serve at home, and I think it'll be a 7-game series.
Yeah. I'm so torn on this, to be totally honest. It's weird because I kind of, in some ways, want to root for Dallas, which is very unlike me. I root against Dallas in almost every sport. But I don't know. There's something I really like about this team. I really like Luka, and they're just, I think they have good energy. And it's for the first time I've ever like really rooted for Kyrie. Although I did one time root for him and LeBron, just because I felt bad for Cleveland, like the very first time, right?
Right.
But other than that, I found him kind of annoying. But on this team, I kind of like him, which is, like it's just so interesting that he's been able to kind of change at least my opinion of him, at least temporarily. I don't know if I might find him annoying again in the future. But,
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's like, well, for this playoffs at least, I don't hate you.
right. I find that really interesting. But so for me, I'm gonna pull for them. I would love it to go like 7, and it'd be a really exciting series. And it's weird because it's two cities I struggled with rooting for, right? You know, it's Boston, who I often root against in a lot of sports, and Dallas, who I often root against in a lot of sports. So it's an interesting matchup for sure. But I'm kind of happy about it because I know I feel like it's a little bit different than people expected necessarily going into it. And I guess some people, yeah, had Celtics because they've been good all season, but I don't think people had them playing against the Mavs except for that one guy who had that crazy bet. Yeah, it'll be a really interesting series. But anyway, everyone go follow CW Guitar, and we'll definitely have you back on for the Olympics. And I really appreciate your time and your patience. I know we ran a little bit
Yeah.
long today.
Awesome. Thanks everybody, and I'll see y'all soon.
Yeah, for sure. And Arun, any final thoughts that you have before we let you go?
No, not. It's like I think it's just going to be a really close series, even though I have the Celtics winning. And right now, I'm seeing the Mavericks are plus like 210, so maybe I would take the Mavericks like in the bet, but I don't think they're going to win. But it's in like I think there's more than like a 33% chance that the Mavericks will win, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Um, all right, I'm gonna give the Arun command one more time. People go follow Arun. I appreciate that as well, and yeah, it's been a very fun season. I know we've talked a lot of different sports. And Arun, the door is open for you as well if you do end up following any of the Olympic sports. Would love to have you back on. But we are going to do just a 2 week special for that. It's going to be the first 2 weeks in August. I know technically we could do it a week earlier, but it's Zach's birthday, so I won't be streaming that night. Also, I'll be at a Green Day concert, but with Tim actually. Speaking of, uh, yeah, so we'll be enjoying that, and but yeah, we'll be back the week after that, and Arun, it's been fun. We covered a lot of different sports this season, and I appreciate you as always.
Sure, thanks for having me on, and hopefully I'll have some RG3 news by then. Signing out.
For sure, and feel free to hang out in Twitch chat for everybody that's following. We are gonna try to, I think, raid into Adrian in a little bit. We're doing he's signed on now, but we'll raid him in about 20 to 30 minutes after we talk about a couple of stuff.
If I get insomnia, I'll try to play with Adrian, but I'll probably go to sleep. I'll keep it on, but I won't
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you don't have to. You don't have to actually stay awake. You can lurk and just give them a view. I appreciate that for anybody who's watching. Um, I'm just letting him know that we are still going to rate him. Uh, anyway, so Ken